What if I told you that one man's unchecked arrogance and greed could not only destroy the lives of countless families, but also lead him to a stunning downfall, serving as a powerful reminder that no one is above the law? This is the riveting story of Ethan Grayson, a man who had it all but lost everything due to his own hubris. Buckle up as we take you through the harrowing twists and turns of a courtroom drama that shook the nation to its core. The courtroom buzzed as if it were alive, the air thick with anticipation and disbelief. Courtroom benches, once pristine and orderly, were filled to capacity. People leaned in, ears attuned to hushed conversations. The whispers, brimming with speculation, could only stir the tension that was palpable. Questions hovered in the air. Who was this man? How could someone so seemingly untouchable find themselves in this position? Then he entered. Ethan Grayson strode into the courtroom, tall and imposing, clad in an immaculate charcoal gray suit that spoke volumes about his wealth and taste. He exuded an aura of confidence that bordered on arrogance. His slicked-back hair glistened under the stark fluorescent lights above. A smile danced on his lips. Perhaps he thought the mood should be lighthearted, as though he were the guest of honor instead of the lead defendant accused of ripping away the financial security of hundreds of families. Yet the reality was far bleaker than his demeanor suggested. His presence made a mockery of the gravity of the situation. Just days prior, headlines had screamed about his questionable business practices, detailing how he allegedly scammed small business owners and hardworking families out of their life savings. As he strutted in with a smirk, it was evident that he viewed the entire trial as an inconvenience rather than a reckoning. And then there was Judge Monica Lee, an anchor of authority, a bastion of justice. Judge Lee entered the courtroom with her black robe flowing elegantly, her presence commanding respect without the need for bombast. No frivolity from her, no grand proclamations, just an unyielding aura of discipline. It was a stark contrast to Ethan's ostentatious display, setting the stage for the clash that was to unfold. As the gavel struck and the court took its proceedings, all eyes turned toward Ethan. The bailiff announced, "All rise for the Honorable Judge Monica Lee." Everyone stood, except for one individual, the defendant, Ethan Grayson, who remained firmly seated, flipping through a legal pad as if perusing a mundane shopping list. The judge's unwavering stare punctuated the silence. The gallery erupted in whispers, disbelief giving way to growing anger. Was this man so far removed from the consequences of his actions that he believed he was above such decorum? "Mr. Grayson," Judge Lee began, her voice calm yet filled with an undercurrent of authority. "You will stand when the court is in session." Ethan made a show of looking up, his smirk still plastered on his face. "Of course, Your Honor." The subtle derision in his tone resonated through the courtroom, his arrogance evident as he finally rose. In that moment, it became clear that this trial was to be more than just a discussion of Ethan's crimes. It was set to reveal the very breakdowns within the systems meant to bring about justice, and how wealth and privilege often clouded morality. The jury, a group of ordinary citizens, would soon be faced with the daunting task of parsing through layers of deception orchestrated by Grayson. Ethan was not just any businessman. He had crafted an empire that shimmered with glamour. Luxury yachts, elaborate mansions, and private jets were all part of the carefully constructed facade. To the public and investors alike, Grayson Investments was a beacon of hope, a promise of financial security. Beneath the surface, however, a dark reality thrived. His business wasn't a shining lighthouse. It was a dark pit, filled with lies and financial devastation. When investigators finally caught up with him, the evidence was overwhelming. Financial records that told a harrowing tale of deceit, forged documents, and a veritable chorus of testimonies from former employees who painted a damning picture of their boss's unscrupulous dealings. Lives were upended as families lost their homes. Futures were wrecked, and elderly citizens faced the stark reality of poverty in their twilight years. The courtroom held a mix of hope and trepidation. Their lives hung in the balance as the trial unfolded. Not just Ethan's fate was at stake, but also the lives and futures of those he had wronged. The trial's atmosphere grew tense with each passing moment, but the gravity of Ethan's crimes barely seemed to register with him as he watched the proceedings unfurl. Days turned to weeks, and as the trial opened in San Francisco, it became evident that this was more than just a criminal case. This was a battle for dignity and justice for families like that of Angela Martinez, a widowed mother who had invested her life savings and lost everything. With her children's futures slashed overnight, she sat in court with palpable pain etched on her face. Her testimony would later serve as a launching point for many as they gathered strength from her resolve. On the stand, Angela poured out her heart, recounting agonizing accounts of sleepless nights spent worrying about where to find their next meal. "I trusted him," she said, her voice quivering with emotion, "and he destroyed my family's future." Her words carried the weight of despair that suffocated the courtroom, while Ethan sat unmoved, scrolling leisurely through his phone, a gesture of casual disregard that struck a nerve in the onlookers. The trial became a spectacle, and reports began pouring in, capturing every nuance of this dramatic courtroom showdown. As the days pushed forward, tension heightened. A glimmer of hope emerged with each victim stepping forward, sharing harrowing tales of betrayal and loss. As the prosecution presented mountains of evidence, everybody could sense the tide shifting. Emails emerged from the mist, proof that Ethan had orchestrated this elaborate scheme. Lines of deceit woven into communications that explicitly revealed directives to mislead investors. The room held its collective breath as words filled with malice echoed through the chamber. "It's just business talk. You wouldn't understand," he retorted dismissively when pressed, arrogantly dismissing the prosecutor's questions as if they held no weight. Gasps erupted in the courtroom. For all the evidence, it was Ethan's hubris that would soon prove to be his most significant downfall. The irrevocable contrast between him and Judge Lee was unsettling. Where Ethan saw personal gain and entitled laughter, Judge Lee viewed a moral obligation, a commitment to uphold justice. As she labored to keep the trial on track, the air thickened with curiosity. How far would Ethan push his arrogance before reality set in? One fateful day, the courtroom witnessed a pivotal moment. Angela Martinez took the stand. Clenching a crumpled piece of paper, she prepared to recount her harrowing journey. Her voice shook, yet the gravity of her testimony reverberated like thunder. "I put everything I had into his hands," she said, voice breaking. "And now my children are suffering because of what he did." For the first time in weeks, Ethan turned his gaze towards her. But instead of absorbing her words, he leaned back, arms crossed defiantly, as if she merely bored him. It was this attitude that solidified what had become evident. Ethan was not just oblivious. He was wholly disconnected from the realities he had created. As the trial neared its climax, it became a theater of contrasts, families seeking dignity, a judge embodying fairness, and one man, unrepentant, who believed he could manipulate the narrative until the final gavel fell. The prosecution rested its case, leaving the defense to scramble in panic. They attempted to discredit witnesses and paint Ethan as the victim of a witch hunt, hoping to sedate the courtroom with unbelievable tales of courtroom conspiracies. Then came the fateful day of the closing arguments. A sense of electricity flooded the air, tension weighing heavily as courtroom observers leaned forward, heartbeats drumming in unison. As the verdict loomed closer, anxiety turned to anticipation. A nation held its breath, waiting for the fate of a man who symbolized the darkest elements of financial greed. Finally, the moment arrived. As Judge Lee prepared to deliver her judgment, Ethan sat casually, confidence exuding from every pore. Even smirking as cameras flashed around him, he had somehow convinced himself that this was just another hurdle to leap over. When Judge Lee's firm voice rang through the courtroom, it shattered the fragile tranquility. "Mr. Grayson," she began, her tone steady, "you have been found guilty on all counts of fraud, conspiracy, and obstruction of justice. The evidence stacked against you is irrefutable." For the first time, the facade began to crumble as disbelief crossed Ethan's features. The judge's words painted a swift narrative, detailing the lives he had wrecked, the families devastated by deceit. "You have shown no remorse," she continued, her voice even but firm. "Your behavior throughout these proceedings has been disgraceful. You manipulated, exploited, and destroyed lives for your gain, believing you could elevate yourself above your victims." The courtroom was a quiet storm as Ethan struggled to process the gravity of what was unfolding. But shock wasn't enough to quell his sense of entitlement. "You can't do this to me," he shouted, refusing to acknowledge the real implications of this moment. Judge Lee wasn't finished. "I sentence you to 25 years in federal prison without the possibility of parole." Gasps echoed, emotions ignited in that instant. The courtroom was awash with disbelief. Victims whom he had wronged, mothers and fathers who had been robbed of dignity, witnessed Ethan's facade finally fade to nothing. For Ethan Grayson, the man who defied humility, the world that once bowed before him had now turned its back. Judge Lee wasn't finished. She explained the immediate liquidation of his assets, ordering restitution for the victims he had stripped of their security and dignity. The courtroom erupted, disbelief giving way to the sound of applause, a rare but fitting conclusion to the display of a man who believed he was untouchable. As the bailiffs led him away, his protests faded into a hollow echo, no longer the confident businessman, but an irrelevant whisper of arrogance. Yet even as Ethan was escorted out, the victims could feel a strange sense of closure. Justice had not only been sought, it had been met with resilience and tenacity. Outside the courthouse that day, it wasn't just the journalists capturing headlines but also the ordinary people, those families who had clawed their way to justice. Like Angela Martinez standing on the steps, a symbol of courage and commitment in the aftermath. "We may still be rebuilding, but we have hope finally," she said to the gathering reporters, her voice steady, reflecting a spirit unbroken. Ethan Grayson's story became a rallying cry, a reflection of the resilience of ordinary folk standing against financial elites. It ignited discussions on accountability across the nation, reminding society that wealth does not grant one immunity from justice. His name faded from the headlines, but the essence of that courtroom battle would resonate long after. Inside her chambers, Judge Monica Lee watched through the window as the weight of her responsibility loomed. She understood her role was not merely about punishment. It was about balance. In her heart, she hoped the judgment delivered was a reminder that integrity would always prevail. As time passed, Angela's youngest daughter, Sophia, penned a heartfelt letter to Judge Lee, published as a testament to the enduring fight for justice. "You didn't just give us justice. You showed us that people like Ethan Grayson cannot get away with hurting people like us," she wrote. "You gave us a second chance." Ethan Grayson's tale remains a testament, a vivid illustration of the multifaceted struggle against ambition, I turn to avarice. In life, we must continually ask ourselves, what does accountability mean to us? Because in the end, the responsibility for justice does not rest solely in the hands of the courts. It is something we must all nurture, defend, and uphold every day. Justice isn't an abstract concept. It reflects our collective values. It is the thread weaving together the fabric of society, a tapestry that grows stronger when united against corruption and deception. And while Ethan Grayson may have fallen, his story serves as both a warning and a ray of hope for those who bear witness to the relentless pursuit of accountability. Thank you for joining us on this journey through one man's downfall and the powerful resilience of those he wronged. If this story inspired you, please like this video, share your thoughts in the comments, and subscribe for more tales that highlight the incredible strength of the human spirit. Remember, in the fight for justice, we are all voices of resilience.